Hello from ABA Tech Show 2019 in Chicago, Illinois. I'm Laurence Colletti.
I'm Jess Birken.
I'm Gyi Tsakalakis.
And we're on the road with Legal Talk Network. And we're back. This is our last recording for ABA Tech Show
We're
this
shutting
year.
it down.
Ooh.
Yeah, we're shutting it
Closing
down.
out the whole event.
Yes, we're going to Beer for Bloggers next, and I'm trying to catch up with something over, I think Keith Lee's doing something.
Lawyer
Yep.
Smack.
Are you going to
meetup.
that?
On the
Yeah,
rooftop.
it'll be fun.
Oh, awesome. So,
yeah, London House, great spot.
do you guys know Tim Barron?
Yes.
Okay.
Is he in town?
Yeah, he's in town. He's going to be at
Haven't
Beer for
seen him
Bloggers,
yet.
and he's going to go to Keith Lee's thing. So I was going to tag along with him because I don't know where any of these things are. So I know how to get to the Beer for Bloggers thing, but after that, I'm lost.
Okay.
We'll just put you on a leash and bring you along. It'll
Thank
be
you.
okay.
I haven't been outside in like 2 or 3 days, so I may
Cold.
need some help. Oh, is it? So I should wear my coat?
I think so.
Okay, because I literally forgot what season it was.
I don't blame you being underground for 3 days.
There are no windows here.
No.
Yeah, I feel like I'm on a cruise ship. We're at the conference center at the Grand, or is it the Grand Hyatt? No. Is it the Grand Hyatt? No.
Hyatt Regency.
Hyatt Regency, yes.
We're
Beautiful.
actually in a tiny room. You can't see this, but it's very tiny.
I'm going to let that moment breathe.
The room we talked in was like the nap room. It was so dim in there. It was,
Was that the one they did yoga in this morning?
I don't know. I don't get up
I'm
that
not a
early.
big,
Yeah.
yoga
Yeah, I walked
person.
in there and I could feel my energy changing that room because I was all wound up and super caffeinated. Everybody else was like doing their poses and looked like they were in total peace. I was looking for chairs.
Was it hot yoga?
I have no idea. I don't really know my yogas. I'm not aware.
What was the temperature of the room?
I could wear my jacket in there.
Okay. Not that. Probably not hot.
Not
Probably
hot
not hot
yoga.
yoga. Yeah, I don't know.
They
I'd
like to
like.
turn that up when they do hot yoga.
Yeah.
That's what I've never done it. Oh, I did it one time.
One time?
It was really hot.
All right, we got a show to do here. So I've got Gyi Tsakalakis, I got Jess Birken, and you guys are doing Google Ads. So it's called Mastering Google Adwords. And
We mastered it.
did you master it?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean,
Well, before we get into it, why don't you give us your background, the bio, because there's some listeners out there that have no idea, what this podcast is about, one, but two, where you guys work. So why don't we start with Jess? Where do you work? What do you do?
I'm a lawyer. I'm a solo practitioner in Minneapolis, Minnesota. My practice is basically all nonprofit organizations, so I help nonprofits with their problems. And I basically was here to, set Gyi up to look like a fantastic expert.
well, I'd like to think you did a fantastic job of that.
I made you look good.
Thank you for that.
Well, Gyi, in addition to being one of our very prestigious hosts of Lunch Hour Legal Marketing, where do you work? What do you do?
I founded AttorneySync. We're a digital marketing agency, and I live in Chicago, and I work at our office in Chicago.
So you guys are both at winter states that got just pummeled by the polar vortex, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Where's your snow, though?
Yeah, you got
have
way more snow than
nothing
we did.
here.
Yeah, no, it's been really weird. We went from negative 25 to like legit negative 25, not wind chill, to which you know about.
Yeah, I know about
to
that.
40 in like 2 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, we haven't gone to 40 yet,
Right,
and
well,
the
that's more
city
normal.
basically canceled parking citywide on the even side of the street through April.
That's such a Minneapolis thing to do. We're canceling parking on the even side of the street.
Like forever. I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's
where
gone.
are the
Indefinitely.
where are
Well,
the people going to park in the city? I don't know. But
it's going to
half
drive
the
up
city
parking
is
tickets,
screwed.
that's for sure.
Yes, it will. So back to Google AdWords. So
yes.
50,000 foot, Google AdWords, obviously, you're trying to get exposure for your website or product service that you're delivering. So what was just the basics? Like, just kind of walk me through some of the topics you guys discussed.
Well, we did a little 101 basic vocabulary, and I tried to bring Gyi down from the jargony jargon to plain English.
That was very helpful, actually, because I tend to go into the jargony jargon.
It's easy to do. There's a lot of it.
There's a ton. And I think the other thing that was a big theme of our talk was how to assess whether Google Ads is even a good advertising channel medium for your firm. Because, Google makes it very easy. This is not brought to you by Google. Google makes it very easy for you to open an account and spend money, but not so easy to actually manage your bids, ad copy, and to a point of getting return on ad spend. That's what we really focused on.
Yeah.
A lot of great questions, though. Great, really engaged audience, I thought.
Amazingly engaged audience.
Surprisingly, for our AdWords, I thought they were all very into it.
Yeah, there was a question every 30 seconds practically. It was awesome.
What were some of the questions? Like, what were some of the best questions asked?
There were a couple of questions about location targeting. There were a couple of questions about linking AdWords accounts to Google My Business listings for local search ads. There were some international questions about targeting different languages, which I thought was interesting. You know, I think in my experience, a lot of people, we tend to think of like the major consumer practices, but you know, for immigration lawyers that are targeting clients all over the world, there's a whole different strategy that you can implement in Google. And so there were a lot of good questions around that stuff. What'd you think? I
thought it was interesting that people were still very fixated on those large, like broad terms like immigration lawyer, Texas, where even when we were talking about how breadth is not necessarily good, and I shared my story about trying to use Google AdWords and putting in nonprofit attorney Minnesota, and I basically just got inundated with phone calls with people looking for legal aid who didn't know the words to use.
That was such a great story to tell, by the way,
attorney.
Because this is a, you know, not necessarily in the nonprofit context, but the point being, you think that one keyword is the right keyword, and it ends up being a disaster and totally untargeted calls, and that's a part of advertising in general that I think gets overlooked so much, is that there's nuances that you got to take in consideration, or else you can spend a lot of money without any results.
Right. I was paying for people to call me to figure out how to get pro bono legal services from legal aid.
Yeah, you don't even offer a free consultation. So that
I don't.
That's a pure meatball Sunday right there.
It's a total
Seth
meatball
Godin.
Sunday.
Oh my goodness.
Seth Godin plug.
Well, let's focus in on that. So now, let's say I'm a new practitioner out there. I'm developing a website, and
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much. I've been working on it all week, and so. Anyway, so I want to bring more business to my local law firm, like my new office, and let's say I practice in maritime law.
Maritime law.
There you go.
Maritime
That's
laws.
a tricky one.
Right. So where do I go to figure out like what are the best key terms? You know, what do I use as a guide to make sure that whatever web company or SEO company I decide to engage in, how can I help them help me?
Yeah, so that was one of the topics we talked about. I think some of the major ways are just start typing relevant keywords you think are relevant into Google, and Google has auto suggest, so it'll suggest keywords. There's also people also ask, was a section of the search results, related searches. There's a keyword planning tool, Google Search Console. But frankly, you know what the best way to do it is? Listen to what your clients are saying and the questions they're asking, and how they describe what it is that you do, because those are the queries they're likely going to search on, and that's the way I would think about it.
Yeah, we talked about that, like how I basically think about what do the people who come to meet with me ask me about. And I actually think it's hard for lawyers to do that because we're so busy analyzing and thinking about how to solve the problem or how to sell our service or whatever, thinking of the next thing to say, which is just bad listening. So maybe even like recording it, or if you can, or having someone else sit in there with you and actually write down every question that one of your consultations asks. Do that 10 times. You probably have a treasure trove of great things.
Yeah, those are great suggestions. And, getting back to your new maritime practice.
Which you should go to therapy to figure out why you want to do that. I don't know. Of all the things, Laurence.
The chances that a person that you're representing that might be injured on a cruise ship is searching for maritime lawyer are pretty low, So like lawyers think like in terms of maritime law, but again, I don't know who your clients are, but let's just presume that they're people that get hurt on cruise ships. It's gonna be more likely like I got hurt on a cruise ship, like who's responsible, or the cruise ship left me on an island. Who can I sue?
Or where can I get my Napoleonic era costume? I don't know.
Yeah,
I was going with Captain
where
themes.
Where do you get Napoleonic era costumes? Is that because if that site doesn't exist, that's high demand right now.
Oh my goodness!
It's just picturing Laurence in with the big hat.
Yeah.
Sort of like on the ship.
Yeah.
On the ship.
Like Chris Columbus or Magellan.
There you go.
Magellan.
There you go.
That's a good one.
I
I bet Napoleon wasn't even on a ship. I totally got that wrong. You're going to get letters.
I don't know.
Sorry.
Did
Although it's
France
interesting you brought up being left on an island, because I believe Napoleon was marooned somewhere, wasn't he?
That's
at the end of his
Maybe
days?
that's where I got it from. I'm smarter than I realized.
You are. You're testing us.
So let's say I'm not Napoleon, let's say I'm not Maroon, but let's say I
Okay.
want my website to reach everybody in my local area.
Yeah.
And so the search, I think that's good advice. Try to find out how your potential clients are trying to find you. So
Yeah, and think about where they are, right? So like there's location targeting. We talked about that. You can do location targeting. So a lot of people will like advertise nationally, and it's like, well, if your clients aren't national, then you probably shouldn't spend ad dollars over there.
Well, what are some of the other things, like, just engaging with, Google AdWords, just advice on that? I think one of the things that lawyers may not factor in is how much time sometimes the marketing efforts take, or, just the prolonged period of a campaign. And so just in terms of how much time should be invested, how much should be spent, do you guys have some guidelines there for any attorney listening?
Well, from the perspective of a solo attorney that has a limited amount of capacity to do all the things in my law firm, I would just recommend you find somebody that you trust and hire them, because, I said this in our talk, like, it really just feels like pouring money into a black hole, and you could literally spend 3 months of your life trying to figure this stuff out, and the algorithms change in 6 months, and now you don't know anything. So for me as a lawyer, I think, stop trying to do this yourself and get some help.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. And if you're going to do it yourself, we talked about this too. You got to spend the time, go through the certification process, learn it. But then you got to ask yourself, like, is this worth my time? Like, I'm supposed to be spending my time being a lawyer. Like, I'm not getting paid to go learn AdWords. And so I think the other thing too, if there's one takeaway from all of this that really we drove home, it was actually based on a great question, is this idea of attribution, right? You have to be able to connect the dollars you spend on Google Ads to legal fees. And if you're not generating some multiple of legal fees more than you're spending, something's wrong. And so don't just continue to spend money and cross your fingers and think things are going to change around. This is not the casino.
Yeah, and then you had a really great making sure that your provider that you work with is going to follow Google's third-party guidelines.
Right. That's a really big one. So Google puts out guidelines that vendors are supposed to follow, and so many of them don't. So if you're working with a vendor, if you're listening and you're working with a vendor, go search for working with third-party guidelines from Google and hold those folks accountable for following those guidelines.
All right, well, I just have one last question for you guys today as we close out our coverage of the ABA Tech Show 2019.
It's the final show.
So most networks would probably edit that part out, but we're going to leave that
Adam
in just
won't.
as a special treat. Yeah, no, Adam will definitely not. That might show up on some other podcasts
Might be
that
the
will remain
lead-in.
unmentioned.
Could be the lead-in.
It might be. But if our listeners want to reach out, they had some follow-up questions, they want some advice on the whole Google AdWords experience, how can they find? Let's start with Jess.
You can find me easiest on Twitter at Jess Birken.
All right, and Gyi Tsakalakis, but in terms of emoji from his phone, Tsakalakis.
That's right. Twitter's great. You can email me, Gyi at AttorneySync.com. Those are probably the best ways.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for spending this last little bit of time for me. And I will appreciate your guidance to the Beer for Bloggers and then also to Keith Lee's event. So that's wonderful. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
And also thank you to our listeners for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please subscribe, rate, and review us at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or best yet, your favorite podcasting app. We'll see you next time for another episode of On the Road with Legal Talk Network.
If you'd like more information about what you've heard today, please visit LegalTalkNetwork.com. Subscribe via iTunes and RSS. Find us on Twitter and Facebook, or download our free Legal Talk Network app in Google Play and iTunes. The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own and do not represent the views of, nor are they endorsed by, Legal Talk Network, its officers, directors, employees, agents, representatives, shareholders, and subsidiaries. None of the content should be considered legal advice. As always, consult a lawyer.